Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Please use DJ at ArtistFirst.com. Now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Z-Man. And I am Michael Lyons.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Margaret.
And we're getting really good at this. You know, I think.
Oh my!
I'm going to say that I think we've finally gotten. It's been 6 or 7 years. I think we've finally gotten the hang of it. We should do a radio show.
Oh my goodness gracious!
We were such rank amateurs when we started. Now we're rankish amateurs. Rankly
amateurs.
Ringly. Anyway, we're getting really good at this. Anyway, so I think though tonight we're going to ruin that streak and mess this up terribly. What do you think?
We can try.
We'll try our best. Anyway, so welcome to the Soul of the Everyman, where your opinion doesn't matter. Trying my radio announcer voice. How's that?
Okay.
I'm getting the look. Welcome to the Soul of the Everyman. Oh, anyway, this is just getting silly. But tonight we're going to have a very, very interesting topic on the Soul of the Everyman. It's gotten me giddy. It's so interesting. We're going to talk tonight about love. We haven't talked about love in a while, but I think we're going to get an interesting perspective on it. I went out and looked for an interesting, sort of a good jumping off point, and I found I thought a very sort of a quote from Eckhart Tolle from one of his original quotes that was from the Power of Now, and it's a good one, and we should probably start off with reading it and kind of set the mood.
Okay.
But then I'll just reach around behind me, and you can't see this, but pat myself on the back. I found it. I kind of inspired me to write something interesting, so I think we'll read that too, and then we'll just jump off from there. So you want to read the quote, and I'll read what I wrote, and then we'll just go.
Sure.
You see how unformatted this is? This is not good radio.
No.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Mm-hmm. All right. This is a quote from Eckhart Tolle. Love is not selective, just as the light of the sun is not selective. It does not make one person special. It is not exclusive. Exclusivity is the love of God, but exclusivity is not the love of God, but the love of ego. Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle. And the reason this appealed so much is exactly that last line, because what came to mind when I read this was the word unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
And the word unconditional is thrown around a lot when you're talking about love. People say to each other, I'll love you till the end of time. I love you with all my being and all my heart. And they really don't know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And true love, the love that Tolle is talking about here, is not egoic love. Everything that people think about love, and I want to stress that word, think about love, is in that egoic realm. It's all about you and me and what I am to you and what you are to me. And don't misunderstand me. That's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. That's lovely. It's a beautiful expression in human terms, which is all we have here, of love. But that word is the problem. And then when it came to me, the first word that kind of came to me was unconditional. And in the aspect or the context of love, this little message came in. So I'll just read that. Love is a word in the same way that death is a word. We see a symbol, we move our breath, we utter a sound, and we think we know it. we no more understand love than we do death. Both are really beyond us, and both are unconditional.
It's true.
And so unconditional is really the core of this thing. And what Tolle is talking about here is a different kind of love. The Greeks broke love up into 3 words, and that was incredibly wise, because it gave at least the idea that we really didn't understand that love itself as a word wasn't big enough. And in English, we kind of cram all this down into this one word. I love ice cream, and I love my spouse, and God loves me. And it's the same word. And those 3 things are wildly and completely unrelated to each other. The ego loves itself. The ego loves itself. A clinical narcissist loves themselves. The same word being used in that context, both in to talk about how much you like a particular food or drink, and how you are related in some incredibly awesome and subtle way to the primordial spirit of the universe and the relationship you have with that being, let's call it at least a being. To use one word to span that breadth of concepts is on its face just ludicrous. Yet we just swallow it and use that word, and so it's you can't describe it as annoying, because it just is what it is. And even the Greeks, who broke it up into, I think it was eros, agape, and philos, or something like that. Philios. And we can talk about that a little bit, and I think we should. But even the Greeks, who broke it up into 3 words, were just taking their best stab at it, really. You have a whole, a whole sort of universe or really it's a range of love. This you have a whole spectrum. That's the word I'm searching for, of what this thing is, and in some level it's a spiral, or it's a yin yang. It's something that moves throughout time in your brief period of existence here, and that concept underlies, empowers, and relates to almost every, if you think about it, almost every aspect of your life. So that's what kind of bracketed it to me into death. We don't understand where we come from, and we don't understand where we go to in incarnation. And love is the vehicle through which we transport ourselves through this existence, if you will. You come into existence through non-existence. You continue in your existence, and I would say that continuance, in essence, is under the sufferance of what we would call, again in this terrible word, love. And then you leave. And both those things, the becoming into existence and leaving, which is life and death, and love, and life and death to me are one thing, so that they're not two.
Sides of a coin.
Love and death, which now sounds like a novel and should be written. I think it has been written. Love and death are two things that we just can't really wrap our hands around or our heads around. But we just throw them into a couple of quick words and move along. Click, click.
Well,
love, death.
It's the habit form of what the human mind does. It notes certain things, certain tendencies, the way certain things go. I mean, we do that in science all the time.
Trends.
You're basically taking equations to describe the way a graph should appear. Or
certain phenomena.
Or different phenomena, how they behave. And when you understand that you're just doing a description. It's not the actual thing.
There's the word, Ma. Description.
Mm-hmm. And the human mind likes to say, well, I understand what that is. It does this. It's like, well, what it is more than what you understand.
Mm.
So that's when that habit form starts to appear. And just as with science, you say, okay, this is the law. These are the laws that we've discovered. And basically, it becomes a law when it is repeatable. The experiment or whatever it is that you're trying to state is done repeatedly by different people, different organizations. But there are certain laws, quote unquote laws, that you can't prove or disprove.
Yeah.
So people, they get crazy.
Origin of the universe.
People get crazy. It's supposed to be something that I can put in a box and understand. But if you're truly a seeking mind, trying to understand things, explore, you realize there's a heck of a lot more out there that I don't know than what I think I know.
You have to make space for the unknown.
So when you translate that into language, which is again a manipulation of symbols, it's also understanding that it's not what you think it is. Just simple communication from one person to another can be tremendous variance of understanding of what's going on. So the word, one person has an idea, well, death means this. Somebody else says, no, death is this. And there are layers. You can see, speaking about death, there's people whose response is absolute fear. And their definition of death has to do with fear. Or looking at ways that maybe I can manipulate my life so that I don't die too soon. Okay, this idea that somehow if I take these vitamins, if I
use this cream,
go to the gym, or if I go with this doctor or have this other treatment.
Vegan diet.
What?
Oh, vegan.
Oh. I will be able to change my time of death. But that's not addressing what death actually is. Death comes, and then that's it. You cannot negotiate with that. In that sense, it is unconditional. You try, and that's man's mind. If you understand that you're in this scenario, man is trying to manipulate things to believe that somehow he's better than what has been absolute result, which is birth and death, as well as the experience of love, which is a relationship thing. But we'll go into that in a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to go back. What you stated right there in the beginning of your talk there. What we have when we abstract from perception, and science. People throw around the term science all the time, but in essence, science is just abstracting perception. And if you use the true classic scientific method, you formulate a theory and you try to prove it, and you can prove it, and as you said, reproduce it. And this seems to be a basic behavior or a basic phenomenon. We call it a law. Okay, this is wonderful, but it's all an abstraction and it's all a model.
Correct.
And perhaps the best thing to trying to transfer that concept of what is a model is it's basically like a drawing or a picture. Now, no one would say that the picture is the thing or the drawing is the thing. It is a representation. It's something which says, well, yeah, that looks like me, this picture of me from 10 years ago. I know that's me, but it's not me now. It's not the being. It's some past symbol, model of me. And it's a much more handsome and younger model than me.
This is
has
an
more
avatar.
hair than I do now. But yes, that's another
It's
good.
an
A model
avatar.
is like an avatar, or
Right.
like if you create a sort of a representation of you in a role playing game, in an RPG, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a model. And what the thing about as you mentioned very, very succinctly, the human mind makes models
Mm-hmm.
of the perceptions it gets, and then through very, very clever abstractions and applying, sort of building up from basic principles, what we call today mathematics and science, but just building up from basic principles. I've established these things. I've seen that my model kind of agrees with reality. So we then start to say, well, okay, now we understand this thing, and then we make the kind of fatal flaw. We jump from the idea of science, which is that you have a model, and that model helps you understand something, but it isn't. A true scientist will tell you that the model is not the thing. Maybe another good analogy is people predict the weather all the time, and they do that with using models. You've probably heard that the weatherman says, well, this is the XYZ model, and this is the 1747 model, and these two models come together and it shows you, okay, that's great. But what those really are, with all the fancy words stripped away, is that somebody has an idea on how this works, someone else has an idea on how it works, and then to make a kind of even a better guess, you take both ideas on how it works and you put them together, and you do something which is like averaging, which you say, well, this one says 10 and this one says 12, so let's guess 11. It's kind of in the middle. It sounds reasonable. Okay, so this is actually perfectly good. Models are great. The mind is great. It wants to understand things. Where we make the fatal flaw is when we jump forward and say, okay, the model is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The picture of me from 10 years ago is me. I still have hair. I still look young and virile and all that other stuff. And so you turn that around and you face it to everyone else in the universe and say, this is really me. This, it's not this older, fatter, balder version of me that you see. This is what you see. This is me. And you go out on some, a dating website and say, this is what you'll be getting if you come and get me. And then someone comes and gets you and they go, oh my God, what have I gotten into? That's not you. Well, it was me. Trying to make the model into the thing is an exercise in what Margaret said. You're trying to control reality by presenting a false, or at least an idealized or conceptualized, which is even perhaps the better word. It's what you think reality is that you want to make reality into. So, the wonderful tools that we've developed over many, many hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of years, to make it so that we can understand, model our universe, make predictions, all the incredible contrivances, the machines, our automobiles, our computers are all based on making predictions about what will happen. And we become incredibly good at it, such that we really can, with an incredible degree of precision, predict what this thing will do under these conditions. But that's not death, and that's not love, and that's not the universe. It's our perception, our abstraction, our model, but not our thing. It's not our plaything. We don't create the universe. However, and this is kind of the most interesting thing about it, the universe exists nowhere else except within your perception. These two things sound weird. They don't sound correct together. We only model the universe. Correct. That model is the only thing that we can use to perceive the universe. It's where our universe exists. So you say, well, those two things don't go together. They do, because you have to realize one very incredibly important fact. The parts of the universe that you cannot perceive still exist. The universe that you can perceive exists nowhere else except within your consciousness. So, to allow for the unknown, for the outside of your perception, is basic and incredibly important. You really have to look at the universe and say, everything I see is the universe that I can see, that I can perceive. And we now have, as Margaret said earlier, we have incredibly good evidence of basically 95% of what we call the universe as being completely imperceptible.
Mm-hmm.
Does it exist? Yes, you bet your sweet whatever, it exists. Can we perceive it? No. Unconditional love exists. A being which imbues all space, all time, and beyond both exists. Death is. But to think that you can put them in your model and understand them is the root of is one of the roots of human folly.
Well, it's absurdity.
Yes, that's a good word from our Camus talk.
But understanding that is the tendency that man has.
We are absurd.
Mm-hmm. To embrace the absurd. And actually to accept that. Because I know there are those that won't want to take themselves very seriously.
Huh.
What do you mean?
You don't say.
And it's like, okay, so you just want to play in the 5% of the universe that you want to say exists, and then other stuff that doesn't exist.
Mm.
Isn't that called limitation? Isn't there something inside of you that says, yeah, there's something wrong with that? And to allow for what you don't know, I always wonder what the motivation is in not not allowing yourself to accept the unknown. Is it just fear? Or what else is underlying it? And there's a lot of internal work.
I have an answer for you when you're done. I think I have an answer.
Okay. Give it to me.
Well, I think the answer lies in control. And I would postulate that the reason people want to limit their universe is they want to shrink it down to what they feel they can control. And they call that the universe because, and it has two tremendous advantages. The first is that you gratify yourself because you've said, now I'm the Lord and Master of this universe that I call mine. But the biggest advantage is when anyone comes into your universe bubble, you will only fight with them on your terms. So unless they accept your terms, you reject them out of hand. And it's both a defense and an attack. So when you limit your universe and become and basically remove all the air from every other argument and say, well, here's my only terms, and my terms are I win, you lose. Heads I win, tails you lose, like that sort of thing. And it becomes a tautology, but it's incredibly self-gratifying. If you can get people to buy into that they'll only come to you on your terms and in your universe, you feel like you can always win. Now, are you limiting yourself? Absolutely, but that's why I think people do it.
Well, I would term that a stillborn existence.
That's a great term.
Because you are not allowing for any growth in any way. you just want what's here. And a baby cannot stay in its mother's womb.
Mm.
There's a limited time that you have to grow. And it's the same down here. This is the definition of what your existence overall pathway or roadmap is. You have a limited time of growth within the womb, and then you must transition. If you don't transition, then it's a stillbirth.
Mm.
So keeping yourself limited like that, that'd be like, well, I'm not taking in any more nutrients, so my body is not growing. So without growth, nothing will develop that you're going to need to make that transition. You have to understand there is a rhythm to it all, and you're being equipped in this existence to be birthed into a larger realm.
Yeah, so you mentioned nutrients. In essence, by limiting, okay, so you think you understand the universe, and you limit it to what you think you can understand and what you think you can control. So now you've got this very tiny, little, tight, little universe. What your nutrients are that you're eschewing are experience or anything outside of your bubble. So in your bubble, you know what love is and you know what death is. You know how to control it. If I do, you mentioned, if I take these vitamins and do these routines and do this yoga meditation, then I'm never going to die, because I know if these are things that I do, I control my own death. I'll only die when I want to. And if I define my universe tightly enough, I can say, this is what love is. It has to come in at this height and with this amount of money and with these possessions and all these things. And once it meets all these criteria, so these become not the tautology is the wrong word, but they become bubbles, insular bubbles, and they're eschewing the nutrient of experience, and the other nutrient is the unknown. They try to deny the unknown.
You have to grow. You can't stagnate.
Well, you can't, but people do try.
Well, that's because they're comfortable in their stagnation. But that brings you to an early death. And that, as we said, death is unconditional at that point.
Isn't that's a wonderful phrase in the sense that to deny yourself all new experience is like an early death. You've in essence put yourself in a type of grave, whether you continue to draw breath or not.
Right. You've shut yourself down to the wonders of the world that's presented to you. And, the idea of trying to control your death, which is, the secret to eternal life kind of stuff. In China, there was all these elixirs they were trying to find to extend their life.
Fountain of youth.
But, there is that element in this society right now where they're thinking of, let's build a robot so we can transfer our consciousness into this
deathless being,
this brain,
right,
that's been created. But if you do something like that, you actually have to AI yourself in.
Yeah.
But that's not what a human is.
Oh, completely not.
No, but this is my point. Yeah. When you're trying to control something and you think that you're brilliant enough to be able to create something that will be able to receive a human consciousness, in doing that, you are going to lose part of yourself, because you're going to be transferring yourself into an AI existence, not a human existence. You give up part of your humanity in order to do that.
Were it even possible, but yes, exactly. You.
It's the concept I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because you can never transfer a human consciousness or soul completely into another body form. It's way different from understanding what reincarnation is.
Well, yes, and you touch upon something that's so huge, because even without that, and even without the idea of, and people have certainly attempted or tried to think about this, it's Frankenstein, right? It's what was Mary Shelley's classic all about? People think it was a monster, but it wasn't. It was really about a way to become deathless. Frankenstein's, idea was that he could reanimate something which he could put the spark of life back into an inanimate corpse. And his quest was the quest of eternal life, that somehow he would become equal to the gods, that he could take a person whose life on earth had ended and restore the spark to this in essence lifeless flesh. And so Shelley's novel is in essence a commentary on the futility of it and on the monstrous results of it. It would be very similar in my mind if you did the same sort of operation into some sort of AI, because that's what you're trying to do. AI with a consciousness transferred from a human being into this machine is a Frankenstein novel.
Right.
Very likely, or quite likely, the results would be similar in one way. You create a monster of sorts. But even without that, let's just, if you go back a little bit and into what we're doing today, all of the bargaining with death. You mentioned this before, that people want to negotiate with death. All the bargaining we do with death is seen in nearly every vitamin commercial or every advertisement you see for one aging cream or this serum or that serum. It's all bargaining with this temporal existence, such that we can control. This is you start with fear, and then you offer somebody the solution. Oh, if you use our XYZ product, your fear of death and the fear of aging or infirmity or any of those things is all tied up with the fear of death. Your fear of death can be assuaged if you just use our product. Instead, Tolle is talking about this too in some regard in his quote. He says love is not selective. Well, guess what? Substitute the word death. Death is not selective. Just as the light of the sun is not selective. It does not make you special. Your existence is not what's special about you. Your unique being is what's special about you. And it's just as special were you to exist for a year or 100 years. And it's actually nearly immaterial how long your life is. It's incredibly important that you be during that time. In fact, it doesn't even matter, let's not talk about time, that you be in the moment of your existence, in every moment of your existence. It's also incredibly important that you love in every moment of your existence. What is love? In one regard, unconditional love is the gratitude of your existence. It's the realization of your relationship with one being to another, and that being can be source, or it can be another emanation of source, which is some other being in incarnation that you have a relationship with. Those two relationships, one filtered through the flesh of existence and one that calls you back towards source, or that you find in consciousness, those two relationships have an unconditional timelessness to them. They're the same relationship, actually. The coming into existence and leaving existence, rather than it being of any concern whatsoever to us, should be just accepted. Yep. It doesn't make you special that you're incarnated, and it doesn't make you special that over the course of your incarnation, everything about you will change until you dissipate, return, as Eckhart says, return back to formlessness. All form, which is what we are, is dissolute. It's not permanent. It changes with every exacting moment of your existence. Every moment you change. To deny that and try to control that is futility. You can't negotiate with death or time. So leave them. Let them be. Accept them. Welcome them. Be grateful for them. Yeah. Instead, look for love in your being, and then in your relationship to another being, and in your relationship to Source. These two unconditional things are really one unconditional thing. They become your being. You exist, which implies both death and life. And you love, which implies the being in relationship. That's the nub of it. And it's not special. It's not exclusive.
Yeah, exclusivity is the key word in the quote. When you understand that exclusivity means that you are putting a barrier up between one person and another, your mind is judging another person, saying that, well, that one's this and this one's that, so I'm not going to love that person because they're unlovable.
Mm.
And I remember speaking to a number of people about this. How do you love the unlovable? That was something I remember when I first was introduced to the term unconditional love. And that is the love that God has for his children. And most of us are looking at it going, a familial relationship. If you're lucky, you have a parent that loves you unconditional, and is able to model that for you, to give you an edge in. But there are many people that have not felt unconditional love from a parent. And you sort of have to limp your way up to maturity at that point, because it's difficult to get over that first hurdle. Because that means that internally, as a child, you're thinking, well, I'm not loved. I guess I'm not lovable. And you wind up not loving yourself. So you have to move through all those steps without necessarily an outward model to show you. But frankly, life is long, and love is great, and there will be someone who comes by to model that for you. So that unfolding of love's expression is amazing, because each one of us as a human being is quite capable of loving. But again, I had that question, how do you love the unlovable? And you realize, especially after you've had children, because frankly, before you have kids, it seems a very distant kind of thought. Your first reaction is, of course, you can't love the unlovable. But when another human being puts you through trials, just the simple act of not being able to sleep through the night, or or different demands that are made for you, you realize, oh, this is a person that I love. I will do this. And that's your start. Suddenly, you're not doing it for your gratification. You're doing it because this other person that you love needs you. And that opens up a whole different door. You start walking and, okay, well, what does this one need? Or how can I help? Or the interactions become quite expansive, delightful, or horrifying. You get the full range.
You do get the full range. The interesting thing there, Mark, is I think the term unconditional is what people stumble over.
Mm-hmm.
And if I might take a stab at it, your example with children is a very good one. The reason that the love of a let's say a mother or a parent for a child it starts to approximate what looks like unconditional love, is because, like our relationship to Source, we can't do anything in incarnation that allows us to deserve what we are given, how we are loved. So unconditional love doesn't have the let's say the first condition is that I'm getting something too. I only love what loves me.
Yeah.
Or I only love if it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Or if it brings me something that I desire. Egoic love is all about that. It's tit for tat. It's
the love that you see between acquaintances or friends.
Right. But even just, you can see egoic love in relationships where the relationship is really, I think, the model of, well, a relationship is 50-50. No, a relationship is 100-100. You give all of you and you expect nothing back. You're not giving of yourself into a relationship as a being that needs something back. You come and you say, here's all of me. This is the best I have. This is me in my best and most noble form, my most quintessential form. This is my being. I give it to you because I love you. This is the model that you can get in the initial relationship that you have, which is between yourself and a parent. A good, loving parent gives all of themselves to their children. What are they getting back? Very little, actually, in the beginning. A lot of poop, mostly. But yet you don't care. You're not looking to get anything from this relationship. This is a relationship which approaches unconditional love because and I hesitate to use the word sacrifice because people get all tangled up in it, but in essence what you say to yourself is, I will forego. But I love this being with all of my heart, no matter what. And I would give everything that I am up into and including my life for this other. Mm-hmm. Because they mean more to me. My love is so great that they mean more to me than my own being, that my own existence. So you've approximated, you've actually abstracted that love into the non-being state. You say, my love goes beyond my life for this other.
Well, and if you continue down that vein, you realize that the other one's life, the one that you love, is your life.
Yes.
Okay, there's no separation.
Yes. In becoming a parent, through that suffering, because it is, through that suffering you can break through. You can actually come into an enlightened state in observing your own love for that other. But you don't have to go all the way there. But initially, that model that you take part in when you have a child, something that you're loving unconditionally, as best as you can in this incarnate existence, because true unconditional love doesn't exist here. But that model gets you into that being state. Your being is non-egoic in that sense. Because the ego wants to trade. It wants it to be about it. It wants the other to love it back. It wants to model itself and see itself in the other. It's all the things you see on Madison Avenue and all over the internet. It's all about this for that, this for that, this for that. This will make you feel good. This will make you look young. This will make you look slim and virile and all this other nonsense. When you're up at 3 a.m, rocking a child who's sobbing and crying uncontrollably, and you just continue to do it, regardless of the fact that you have to have many, many things that you have to do, and that this one needs you, and that's the most important thing, and everything else falls to the side. And you spend all night with this child, and you console them, you make them feel better, and in the morning you're just a complete total wreck and a mess, and you do it again the next day, and again and again and again, because all the things that you are putting on the line there are less in value to you than the relationship with this being, because they need you. It approaches this sort of unconditional love. Nothing that they're doing is making you feel better or making you happy or giving you anything back, including sleep or anything. It's all in one direction, but it doesn't matter, because this isn't an egoic, exclusive relationship.
It's not about you.
It's not about you. And the fact that at that moment, even though you can't perceive it, that model of unconditional love is going deep into that other. It's becoming something that they will do in the future for their child, your grandchild or your great-grandchild or whomever. That chain in this existence is an echo, a model of the eternal existence and the incarnation existence and the love that lies below it, that carries us from non-existence into here and back out. And if you recall a moment like that in your life when you're dealing with a child in the middle of the night, it seems timeless, doesn't it? Like it lasts forever. Because that's an actual moment of now. And there's no greater moment in that existence when they finally just fall asleep in your arms and you go, I've achieved a form of nirvana here.
Screaming has stopped.
Screaming has stopped.
Oh my.
But you grow that experience so far outside what you could ever have imagined it was going to be.
Right.
Brings you into another step further into your being state. Mm-hmm. So it is not a unique, but it is an essential experience to do, to care for someone that deeply, so deeply that they take you completely outside of yourself. You're doing something you would do for no other, but you're doing it for this being because your love goes beyond all those conditions.
Mm-hmm. Love expands your consciousness.
Oh, absolutely.
You realize that there's more to this than just what this immediate need is. And are you committed to this expression of love? You realize at that point that that's who you are. And you really have no choice in it. You must do this, regardless of all the screaming that's going on for yourself. Internally, you may be screaming just as much as the little one that's screaming at you.
You said something incredibly important. I hope you would elucidate. You said that you realize that's who you are.
Yes, you are love, believe it or not. Love itself is the life that powers this entire universe. And that sounds like a Hallmark card thing, okay?
Love powers the universe.
But what I'm saying is that when you are in that timeless moment of feeling like there's nothing but burden on you, suffering is on you, but you do this because you realize that this is what the moment holds right now. There's no way to negotiate yourself out of it. It's like trying to negotiate yourself out of death. There are moments that you cannot negotiate yourself out of it. So what you wind up doing is surrendering to that internal prompting of your heart to love deeply. And that's when you have to go into what I call a prayer mode and ask, how can I love wisely in this moment? Because I am walking a knife edge here. And I need wisdom. You're motivated by love, but you're guided by grace in that moment. And you know when it's right because there's a lightness and a peace that comes over you when you take steps toward the appropriate path, the path that has light to it. I have no other way to describe it. Because many times when you're walking these pathways or decisions, it's like sticking your toe into the water. You put your feeler out and it just feels wrong. Your heart tells you, no, this is wrong. You put your feeler out in another pathway. This is so-so. And he continues like, okay, here, there's life here. Let's take steps in this direction. And the truth is, you can't necessarily explain why you make that particular decision. If you're dealing with a larger community in general, like a room full of doctors, you allow grace to take over and the words come forth from you, and that grace gives them reason to value your decision. And it's amazing because it's not you, it's something far greater than you that's speaking at that moment.
I think the recognition of that, as you say, grace, but that the recognition of it is even in the eyes of all people who are egoically there. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they've got all these titles and all these things. They are, do. But when someone speaks in the voice of grace, it pierces and it resonates. And they say, okay, this is your decision.
Right.
This path is the path that we all need to go on.
Right.
But I want to back up because in essence, what you said there was really perfect. In essence, that when you're in a situation, the situation we just described, when you're caring for an infant, you can't negotiate your way out of that. There's no bargain you can strike with a crying infant, and you know that at a basic level that this not only is this being unable to give you anything, but there's no reasoning with it. There's no thinking there. You have to accept. You have to surrender to that moment, and in that surrender and saying, "This is the moment of now," you learn that. And then if you get the opportunity, and I'll say opportunity, but it's a hard road. If you get the opportunity to do that similar sort of thing in a life and death situation with someone that you love, you have to seek that unnegotiable point, the unconditional point. The unconditional, you can't negotiate your way past this thing. You can't say, well, I'll give you this for that. I'll bargain with you. I'll do it later. It's not the good time. No. You've already found that in the person that is actually you comes to the fore when you're in a non-negotiable situation, when it's either you're the person, you're on the spot, you've got to do it. If you recall what it took to get you through that point, the being state, and you bring it back and you employ it in this new being state, it comes stronger, it comes better. it brings you closer and closer to who you really are, the being, not your titles, not what you think you are. You think you can negotiate with death. You think you can negotiate with an infant. You think you know what love is. If you throw all that to the side and go with Margaret was saying, you put your feeler in and say, this is right. This is what we should do.
This has life.
This has life. This is grace. Then you're on the path. Then you're who you really are.
And that kind of contact, that kind of love is not selective. It is not exclusive. The only exclusivity that happens, or the barriers that happen, is because you decide not to go there.
Mm-hmm.
You decide that you already know. You decide that you're listening to all these other people telling you what it should be.
Mm-hmm. And
you realize that that's only a model.
That's the love of ego.
That's a model that they're giving me. There's something more than this. And to open up and say, okay, they're correct in this particular area. They're 5%, there's 95% out there that they don't know, that I don't know. I need help in that 95%. And that's where love can travel.
Yeah.
That kind of internal searching for truth of what is. Because 5% versus 95%, which is the truth of what is? The 5%.
It's only a model.
It's only a model.
It's only a model.
Mm-hmm.
And in truth, what you just said is exactly correct. You have to allow for the mystery.
Yes.
And the heart holds boundless mystery.
Yes.
The heart knows who you are, and you are a mystery.
And we have reached the end of our hour.
That's mysterious. How'd that happen? You're right, of course.
So I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.